Welcome. The interview you are about to see with Claire Lai, law student and daughter of entrepreneur and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai, was recorded a week prior to her father's sentencing. On Monday, February 9th, Jimmy Lai was sentenced by a court in Hong Kong to 20 years in prison. 6 of Jimmy's former employees at Apple Daily also received prison sentences that day. In this interview, you will hear from Claire herself about her father's unjust imprisonment and his powerful Christian witness, which no prison walls can contain. We ask for your prayers for Jimmy, his family, and friends, and for those in positions of political authority who may be able to intercede on Jimmy's behalf in the coming months. We continue to pray for his release. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Acton Line, a product of the Acton Institute promoting a free and virtuous society. I'm Mark Townsend, producer. You can find additional resources in the show notes for this episode, as well as previous episodes of Acton Line at acton.org/podcasts. If you have a comment or an idea for a future episode, you can email us at podcast@acton.org. Acton Line is available to stream on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and acton.org.
Welcome. My name is Dan Huger, librarian and research associate at the Acton Institute, and today I'm joined by Claire Lai, daughter of entrepreneur and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai. She is also a law student. Jimmy was found guilty by a Hong Kong court on December 15th in a landmark national security trial. Mitigation hearings concluded last month with judges yet to set a final sentencing date. The maximum penalty is life in prison, and we have been following very closely on this program Jimmy's story, and we've been praying for Jimmy and his whole family, and we're so pleased to have Claire with us. Welcome to Acton Line, and thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
So the last time we did an episode on this program on your father, it was back in December after his sentencing. And I spoke with Steve Barrows here at the Acton Institute, and we discussed your father's conviction. But I want to get a little more family-sized view of this, and how was that time for you and for your family? This is something that had been 5 years in the making.
So it's actually just on the topic of the verdict. I mean, usually we get a bit more notice, but this time we got something like basically we got the notice on the Friday, and then it was the verdict on the Monday, and it's that day was actually the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I got a lot of comfort from that. Well, firstly, I wasn't home with Dad anymore, so it just reminded me that the Blessed Mother is watching over my father. And there was one time when he was in prison, and we were trying to enter a rosary, and we weren't allowed to. We tried a few times, it once he was in the shower, and he was because he's weaker and he's older, and he gets sick, and his immune system is suffering. So he would, he was, after the shower, he just couldn't stand up. And even some guards tried to help him. And he just remembered what we told him about trying to enter the rosary. So he prayed to the Blessed Mother, and suddenly he was able to get up, and it gave me a great deal of comfort then to know that the Blessed Mother is interceding on his behalf, and gives him a lot more strength that physically I could. And getting the notice on that day, it was also a reminder that whatever happens, the Blessed Mother is looking after him. And that was just a huge deal of comfort.
That's a wonderful assurance.
Yeah, I mean, especially Our Lady of Guadalupe, because, evangelization means so much to Dad through his drawings and so on. And obviously Our Lady of Guadalupe is well known for leading to a lot of conversions. And it was, because I've heard of stories of not just people who were his friends who have been touched by his faith and converted, but also I know less about the intimate details of those people's lives, but guards who have been so moved to tears by the strength of his faith. So I just think it was a great comfort, and it was a great reminder.
This has been a powerful time of transformation this last 5 years.
It has been.
And the circumstances of your father's imprisonment are, of course, horrible and unjust.
Yes.
But there's been a powerful transformation that's happened with him and with your whole family.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that time, and what that's done to your father, and then also to yourself and your whole family?
I've said before, but I think there was a certain amount of courage required of him when he decided to stay in Hong Kong that can only be explained by the Holy Spirit. And that's why that's one of the reasons why we as a family didn't try to dissuade him from it. And it's especially in a place like Hong Kong that is so busy, where there's so much noise, and especially because I grew up so sheltered, and we've always been a very Catholic family, but it's really in the last 5 years where there are times, especially for Dad, where he has only been able to rely on God's grace, and that has been so abundant, and it's like only is the wrong word to use here, because it was where the thing that sustains you is his grace, and I mean, for me as well, there are times, because I grew up so sheltered, I mean, sometimes I've needed guidance, and I've needed sort of wisdom, and where the one thing that sustained me has been God's grace, and it is it fills you with such joy and such strength, and that nothing else really could, and that so that's why I shouldn't use the word only, but it's the, yeah.
Well, and it's in these times of trial and deprivation when that grace can come, and when it can give you that assurance, and it can give you that peace, and you realize, I mean, we all those of us who believe in God and have faith in God and pray, we all say that that's where our strength comes from. But a lot of times, we also, we're depending on other stuff in the background. But in these sorts of times, it's really true, and you can experience it all that more deeply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, recently, Sir Keir Starmer had a trip to China, and that was filled with a bit of unease. Because I went to confession prior to going to DC, and one of the things I confessed about was that I was worried that if the trip isn't successful, that it will shake my faith and my trust in divine providence. But then on the first day of his trip, I went to Mass. And I was ready to go and only pray for Dad's release. And but it was the feast day of Angela Merici, and I arrived a bit late because of the snow, and I was walking, but when I arrived, the homie was completely focused on on her trust in his divine providence, and her finding ways to serve him regardless of the circumstances. And it wasn't a saint I was very familiar with before. And then when Mass ended, we prayed St. Jude's Novena, and which I'm not actually completely sure why, because we're so far from his feast day. But and by the time Mass, by the end of Mass, I was praying, of course, for his release, but also that God gives us the strength to persevere, and as I know, that's what He would provide to Dad, and I knew that actually that is exactly what I needed to hear that day, and that's exactly what Dad would have said to me and that's what he wrote to me, that in a letter that he wrote last month, but I only got a few days later. And it just reminded us that ultimately our faith is in God. It's not in a regime or a person, and that is enough.
Yeah. You told a very beautiful story earlier about your father relying on God for strength in prison. It was mundane ways, and standing in the shower.
Absolutely,
sort of strength. He's also gotten inspiration from God to pursue sort of new passions and new interests in prison, that he's then turned in service back to the Lord, which is really beautiful. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So he started drawing. He's not allowed to send them out anymore. He was banned around end of September 2022. But he started drawing the Crucifixion, the Blessed Mother, the Annunciation. And at the time he was banned from it, he also had started drawing the Pietà, and actually later on I entered. He asked me to enter, the 7 Stations of the Cross for him, which he said was a bit beyond his reach at that point.
Yeah, he had never drawn before, really.
Well,
or a little bit,
like stick man, and and so on. But it's he really. And it does show that regardless of the circumstances, if you want to hear what God is telling you, and if you want to know how to serve Him, you don't have to look far. You just have to look attentively, and that he started almost immediately after he went in, and he read a variety of books before, and I mean, one of them is Summa Theologica, and he read it before prison, and then he asked me to enter it after he was in prison. And after, when he was done reading it, he told me, I had read it before, but reading it now, it just gives it a whole new meaning. And I think it's just in a lot of ways his faith has deepened so much he was always, as a family we were always of strong faith, but especially in the last few years Dad has completely, it's like he just wants to find ways to serve our Lord, and one of the ways is in his drawings. In fact, like he sent it to fellow prisoners, like fellow political prisoners, and so on. And I know, like a few weeks before he was banned from sending them, the guards, certain guards, went to see him to tell him to stop drawing the Crucifixion, and he said, he couldn't because. It's important that people who are suffering know that we are all the beloved children of God, and that they know that they can offer up their suffering to Him. And and so he and then he was banned from sending them. But it's and he used, I think he used a term like like a sort of loop of grace. It's like when you receive such an abundance of grace from our Lord, you can't help but pass it on.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share with others. And it's a powerful reminder to yourself too.
Absolutely.
It's very touching. There's another dimension, and you talked about it a little bit with the reading. But he's been doing a lot of spiritual reading, heroic amounts of spiritual reading.
Not simple works either. I mean, like Summa Theologica, like City of God by Saint Augustine. They are, and he often reads and then rereads and it's and pretty much all his reading basically is that, with the exception of some books, maybe like 10%, 10, 15, 20% of his books being about art and to help him do his drawings. The rest are, and he tends to he tends to really, when he likes an author, he would try to read all their works. And even before his incarceration, one of the things that we did growing up was learning about saints and learning about whether it's who to pray for, to intercede for certain things, or just learning about their example. Like he would read a lot more about their lives and their works, and he would draw such inspiration,
The other thing, and you mentioned him writing prayers to you earlier.
Yes.
Is the prayer life has intensified.
Yes.
In prison, both of course privately, but then prayers for others, like prayers for you that he's sharing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So he wakes up in the middle of the night every night to pray, and sometimes in the days he would say, I wish I had more hours in the day because I don't have enough time to pray. And he prays like pretty much, because he's not a great sleeper, so he prays pretty much like 19 hours a day. So it's he prays for many hours in the day, and he also he wakes up before the crack of dawn to read the gospel, and he, at first it was the lights would be turned on for him, but afterwards it's just he would rely on the lights that come from the corridor and to make out the words, which isn't good for his back or his eyesight, but it brought him so much joy. And I guess because like I'm sort of the more sheltered one in the family, and the one who I'm the worrier, and I'm the one who I'm the person who I'm the person in the family who worries more, and I'm the person in the family who I was like his little princess, so he would end his letters with a prayer, and his prayer, and that's his way. That's one of his ways of comforting me, and that would bring me so much comfort and joy. And like the latest one where he was like, he knows that our Lord is all knowing and all seeing, and that he was in his hands absolutely, and it was exactly what I needed to hear, and it's and yeah.
Now you've mentioned sort of there's an increasing amount of restrictions, even down to light, being placed on your father. How much access have you and your family had to your father, and how has that changed over the course of these years of his imprisonment?
So in the first 4 months of his imprisonment, because he was still on remand, we would get to visit every day for 15 minutes. But after he was sentenced, we would get about half an hour 4 times a month, which amounts to about 24 hours a year, which isn't very much at all. And it, there were new prison rules imposed over the summer, summer of 2025, and what it does create is a system where social visits, legal visits, pastoral visits are all a lot more discretionary. Like right now, the 2 visits we definitely get, and then 2 are discretionary. The new prison rules could mean that all of them are discretionary on the basis of the extremely vague term of national security, so obviously we worry that it will be further restricted. We don't know yet. So yeah.
Is he getting regular pastoral visits?
So he it depends on who you ask, but objectively, I would argue that no, he does not. In the last 2.5 years, he got he got administered the Holy Communion, I think 11 times. Okay. And for the communists that's regular. For Catholics, it's like, I mean, 52 days is the bare minimum. 52 times is the bare minimum in 1 year. In 2.5 years, for it to be 11 is pretty ridiculous. But I also know that pressure from the outside is what has often led to him getting it at all, even though it's so sporadic. And it's when he got it for the first time again, I went home and then I read a bit of Maximilian Kolbe.
Yes.
And it was sort of as a way of like, and I know that getting it at all brings him a huge deal of strength. I mean, it's how we come into communion with Christ. And but it is, that amount is still completely insufficient, and he can't go to mass because he's in solitary, and so it's a priest who goes to his cell and then administers it, and but he for example, midnight mass for Christmas is something that he really longs to go to, and just mass in general, and yeah, it's just it's not none, but it's certainly not enough.
Yeah, we'll pray that he gets more.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about problems with physical strength. We've talked about great spiritual growth. How else is your father doing with the health challenges, with the burdens that, of course, the trial and all of this have placed on him, with the separation from you and from the rest of his family so much of the time? How is he doing?
I'll take those in turn. So the health challenges, I mean, I've gone through in some other interviews about the litany of health challenges he suffers from, but I've watched as some pre-existing conditions are very poorly managed, like his eyesight, which has just gotten so much worse, his diabetes, which his blood sugar isn't being checked as regularly at all. Like when I say not regularly, for someone diabetic, it should be checked like at least every day. Yeah. But his gets checked like once every 3 weeks or something, which is quite pathetic, honestly. And I've also watched as he developed new conditions like his heart conditions, and like blood pressure and so on and so forth. And it's just, and also he's 78, like he's the average age expectancy in Hong Kong for male is 83. He is not far from that. So we are just very worried. And as for the separation from family, I mean, I think obviously he misses us a lot, and we miss him so dearly. I mean, in a lot of ways, our family has been physically torn apart. I mean, my poor brother, who hasn't been able to see my father in 5 years, over 5 years, and every time we went to visit before, we would end the visit praying. And there were times when we would be escorted out because it's the end of the visit, and Dad would still be praying. And we got such a great deal of comfort from that, because we knew that God was with him, and he doesn't have to watch us leave. And so we got a huge deal of comfort from that. And as for the trial, I mean, I think, gosh, the trial took up like 2 years. It's been more since we're still waiting for the sentence. But the trial, and he took the stand and gave evidence for 3 months. And I remember there was once in the trial, like, where he was so weak, he was pale and he was shivering, and that was before he started giving evidence, and he was too weak to stand, and to the point where even like the judges noticed. And he like, I remember, because it was right around the time he had decided to give evidence, and I remember a few of us asked him, like, are you sure you still want to do it? Because the judges and the prosecutor will be extremely harsh, and it will take a really long amount of time, and it will be physically extremely taxing. And he knew he was. And I guess it's like the first time, like when he decided to stay, it's a certain amount of courage that can only be explained by the Holy Spirit, and it shows that not even failing health can alleviate him of the burden of truth, and when he decided to do it, I mean, that's the last we mentioned of it.
Well, we're all going to be praying for
Thank
the
you.
sentencing.
Thank you so much.
And for his release. But I was wondering, and then this is sort of the final question, is how can folks listening to us now, how can they give their support to both your father and your family, and to the people of Hong Kong? What can listeners do?
If in your charity, I would ask for you, if you can, to keep my father, our family, and the people of Hong Kong in your prayers. So if you can spare a prayer, it does sustain him. It sustains our family, and there have actually been quite a number of converts inside prison, so that would mean a huge deal. And also, it's if you could just help spread the word about that. I mean, we have Instagram page called Support Jimmy Lai. It's also on X, and if you can, write to your congressman or senators, and I mean, in support. But we have already received a huge amount of support, on both sides of the aisle, really, in Congress, and also from President Trump, who has mentioned my dad on several occasions, and his administration have a proven track record of freeing the unjustly detained. That's really, yeah.
Absolutely. We will spread that word. For folks who want to learn more about the whole circumstances, we did a film on your father, The Hong Konger, that we'll also include in the show notes. Claire, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
with us and for sharing. I know this is
thank
very
you.
difficult for you and your whole family, but it's amazing blessings that your father is receiving from God and then turning around in service to others, even during his imprisonment. And we're so thankful for him and for all of you.
We're extremely grateful for you guys and really I really mean it when I say that Dad is sustained by prayers. Just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Acton or hear more of this podcast, please visit acton.org/podcasts. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.